Welcome to the Still Men Podcast, where we take a 15-minute look at a news story and try to have an honest conversation about it. We're the Still Men. My name is Will, and with me is Jay. Say hi, Jay.
Hello, Will.
Hey, Jay. How often do you masturbate during the podcast?
Well, I try to get in, 2 or 3 beforehand so that I only have to do it once while we're recording.
Gotcha. All right, so today we're going to talk about Jeffrey Toobin and him getting caught during a Zoom call masturbating. He reported to, I think it was Vice News, I'm not going to look it up right now, but he said that he didn't know his video camera was on, so he wasn't intentionally trying to, sexually harass his coworkers, but it happened. He was caught, and it became a hot news story. So one particular article we're going to look at today is by a Jonathan Zimmerman, and he wrote the article titled Jeffrey Toobin and the M Word. Let's be honest about what makes this scandal so scandalous. And what he goes through is he talks about it's just masturbation. We all do it, basically. He cites some stats about how like 81% of men, I think, admit that they masturbate, but nearly half of them admit they also are not comfortable talking about it. He also he directly blames our views on masturbation on the Enlightenment. I guess the reaction to the Enlightenment, where he talks about how that the Enlightenment brought in natural rights, the ideas of liberty, and then of course when you introduce those ideas, I guess the religious side of the house during that time are afraid of that type of liberty, and what that ultimately does is leads to bad things from having too much freedom, which includes masturbation. Then he admits, the sexual revolution happens, but we're still kind of conditioned to think masturbation is wrong. And he cites an example of the Surgeon General under the Clinton administration getting fired for advocating teaching kids how to masturbate in schools. So that goes to his argument that we're too prudish. So he pretty much, that's his argument. He ends it with a couple other stats. So I'm just going to pose it to you, Jay. Do you think what Toobin did was wrong?
Well, this was just a real rookie mistake. Morally, what he did isn't wrong. But come on, man, for a guy like Jeffrey Toobin, surely he knows you can't just assume the camera's not on. See, this is something you learn very quickly in a call center. I used to work in a call center where it was common practice to mute yourself so that you could say something to someone else without the customer hearing. And I learned this very quickly. Occasionally, you think you've muted, but you haven't. So yeah, unforced error on Toobin's part. It was obviously a big mistake, but it's not wrong that he did it. But yeah, I think masturbation in general, it is this weird juvenile sort of thing to talk about and joke about. You can't talk about it without snickering to yourself. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that necessarily, as long as if you're not actually looking down on someone for doing it, then I don't think it's that big a deal. But I will give Toobin some credit here. This guy's a multitasker. I mean, hey, if you can work and masturbate at the same time, 2 birds, 1 stone. So I think he should be commended for that. And by the way, why don't companies, you can go out and take a smoke break. Why can't you have a masturbation break? If this company would just give him some dedicated time during the day that he could masturbate, he wouldn't have to do it during meetings. Yeah. So yeah. What about you, Will? How often do you masturbate at work or in meetings?
Probably like once an hour, at least 5 times a day, I think.
Yeah, my quota is 3 times a day during work hours. Yes.
So yeah, I think masturbating isn't wrong. Like, no, I don't know who's going to argue that. I guess if you're a religious person, you're going to take a stance on that. But masturbating during work is wrong. Like, I'll die on that hill. I don't understand why not wait till the Zoom call is over? Like, why do you have to do it? It's like it's such a weird thing to fall back on and be like, "Oh, I didn't know the camera's on." Like, why are you masturbating while you're having a conversation with people? I don't understand that.
When you gotta
But
go, you gotta go.
no, that's terrible. I mean, yeah. So yeah, I mean, he didn't do anything wrong, but he definitely shouldn't have been doing it during work time. He should definitely not be. I feel like he might have been getting off on this. Like, I think he probably got a little excited that nobody would know he was masturbating,
Oh,
except they knew. I can't help but think that's what prompted this, because I don't even understand. Like, I can't even get in that mindset. Like, I'm
I
gonna
know.
masturbate while I'm in a Zoom call. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I have
Like,
never been.
I have, like, a private room, I wear a special hat, I have nice gloves when I masturbate, I go there for, like, an hour, but to just do it on a
Yeah,
Zoom call, it just seems bizarre.
yeah. Well, I've never been in a work meeting in my life where I looked at all the people I was in the meeting with and had the desire to jerk off. I can't relate to that myself. But that's a good point. I do wonder, maybe that's his thing. And
Yeah.
hey, we know he got caught now. For one, this is not the first time it's happened. Who knows how many times this guy jerked off during meetings when his video wasn't on. But two, he's going to pay for this sit. Like he will never live this down. The article points out everyone will always hear Jeffrey Toobin's name and think masturbation. And if you see him, inevitably, you're going to imagine him masturbating. Like he's going to have to live with that for the rest of his life. I kind of feel sorry for him.
Yeah, I definitely feel sorry for him when you put it in those terms. So, talking about the article, do you think the writer has a point? Do you think that we as Americans, we as a society, I don't know about other nations, but we as Americans, are we too prudish when it comes to masturbation?
I think we are. Yeah, I agree. But and maybe it is because of this individuality thing, right? Where anytime you do something alone, going out to eat by yourself or going to a movie by yourself or drinking by yourself, those are all looked down on as kind of sad and lonely. And so when you have sex with just yourself, I guess maybe there's something where we tend to conflate it with this loneliness and that's sad somehow. Now, why it's so funny, I don't know. I don't know why masturbation is this funny, joking thing. Just like I don't know why farts are a funny thing, but they are. It's the sort of thing you just can't help but laugh at because, yeah, and there is some sort of shame we associate with certain bodily functions that we all do, and we all know we all do them. So I really don't understand how it has ended up this way. But hell yeah, looking down on someone for doing that is way prudish, man. And making fun of him, I don't know. I'm a little fuzzy on that. Like, does he deserve to be made fun of? Like, is it just a ribbing, like as Trump would call it, locker room talk? I mean, is it really going to hurt him to make fun of him necessarily? I don't know.
Yeah, I think overall I agree with Zimmerman here. I do think it is a taboo subject. Like, I'm uncomfortable talking about masturbation for this podcast. I don't know, though, I buy into all of his separate little points. Like, one of the points he brings out is in the 2016 survey that 95% of women and 95% of men and 81% of women have masturbated. Yet in that same poll, over half the respondents said they felt uncomfortable talking about it. Now, I don't think that on itself says anything, because I could also say, 100% of men and 100% of women wipe their ass after they shit, but nobody wants to talk about that either. I would feel uncomfortable talking about that. So I don't understand how taking these stats and saying, oh, these are bad because we're just prudes. Maybe there's just some things that you shouldn't be talking about on a normal basis, even though everybody does them.
What's the reasoning behind anything should or that anything should not be talked about, right? Like what's the logic in saying that there should be anything that's off limits or that we should be ashamed to talk about? Why yeah, why would there be such a thing?
I guess Tubin would, not Tubin, Zimmerman might push back and say, if somebody caught me on video wiping my ass, that it's unfair that I get made fun of when we all do it. But I don't know. I mean, that it's like I'm not going to be wiping my ass during a Zoom call. Again, I'm going to wait till after the Zoom call to go take a shit. I'm going to
Yeah,
wait till after the
right.
Zoom call to masturbate. Yeah, and after this
Boy.
conversation, after this podcast, I'm also going to masturbate. So just let you know.
Okay. Thanks for keeping me updated.
Okay.
Let me know when you're finished.
Okay. So the other thing I want to point out is when he cites about the Clinton administrator getting fired for wanting to teach for advocating to have the schools teach kids how to masturbate. I mean, that's just kind of like neither here nor there. Is it the government's job to teach children how to masturbate? I mean, is it the government's job to teach people how to fuck? I don't think so. I mean, it's just like
Dude, that's the
he
most absurd thing I've ever heard. Is anyone advocating that the government school system should be teaching kids how to masturbate?
Yeah, it's just to me the person didn't get fired because masturbation is a taboo topic. They had a stupid idea and they got fired for it.
Yeah. One other thing too, it's I do think there's a Christianity religious sort of aspect to it that's left over in the collective ideology of the West, as they call it. That Christianity, even if you're not a Christian, you know about it, and there are certain values that Christianity has always espoused that we kind of have embraced. One of which is individuality, kind of the thought that as a Christian, you can be anybody and be saved, and we're all equal in the eyes of God. We're all these individuals that are equal. So I could see how that links to the Western thought of, or the Western ideology of individualism. I mean, I'm struggling still to make that connection.
Yeah, I guess when you're just trying to talk about his tie to it, the Enlightenment, right?
Well, I'm trying to figure out how it's become taboo. And I think it has to do with Christianity, and masturbation just hasn't caught up to, because we talk about sex a lot more than we used to, but masturbation hasn't caught up in a more mainstream way, say, than sex has.
Like I'm not an expert, but I find it hard to believe that the world prior to the Enlightenment also found talking about masturbation and doing masturbation in public wasn't also taboo. Like, I mean, the
Oh,
world was the same religiousness as it was before the Enlightenment. So I don't know. I kind of understand where he's coming from, like what he's trying to tie together. It just seems kind of not there all the way.
yeah, there's more to it than that. But yeah, do Buddhists, do they look down on masturbating? Like, I don't know what Islam thinks about the idea. I did find it interesting that he pointed out that there's really only one thing in the Bible, according to him, that even mentioned masturbation. So it's something it's not directly from the Bible or Christianity. I think it just has become this thing associated with dirtiness, where Christianity is all about this cleanliness and not having idle hands or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't know about that particular verse, but I am kind of surprised there isn't more in the Bible about masturbation being wrong. Especially, I mean, if his whole argument is basically, I'm assuming religious fundamentalists pushing against the Enlightenment, that there'd be more there. But I mean, it might be the case. I don't know.
Yeah, well, hey, I don't know the history of masturbation. Haven't read a book on that. Maybe I will. But surely masturbation has been around just forever. Certain many animals masturbate. So we've been doing it forever. It's totally ingrained into the human creature. But also imagine if there was no masturbation, like a world with no masturbation. It just isn't a thing. Either it's not possible to do it or you can't do it. How many more like how many more rapes would there be? I would venture to say masturbation is the number one preventer of rape in human history. Yeah?
I don't know about that. Well, I think that was pretty good. You have anything else?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Well, we're out of time.